Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Woodside Park. And we are looking forward to an action-packed Purim, albeit it'll be virtual. So we'll discuss that a bit later. But let's first make the dedications. So today's learning is in honor and memory of Leah Bas Bible, Ben Yomin Akiva Ben Shlomo, Rav Yaakov Tzvi Ben David Ari, Tzipora Feigala Bas Reuben Baruch, Paul Kazimir, Shalom ben Elili, Ben Bas Bible, Frumash Shana Bas Yaakov Shmuel, Kela Bela Bas Henach, Yirmiyahu Yechia ben Moshe Eliezer Sar Malka Bas Ben Yomi Shlomo Yechia ben Yeshua Levi, Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katner, and the Yortzites for today. Second. Shabtai ben David Elman, Tova Bas Moshe Goodson, Yehuda ben Harav, Menachem Mendel Speedwell, Chaim Lei ben Eliel Rosenfeld, Shoshana Bas Chaim Graber, Shalamis Bas Michael Richman, Moshe ben Pinchas Shafa, Racha Basha Bas Eliyahu Avram Gleidstone, and Chaim ben Shmuel Sugarman. I hope I have remembered everyone. If there's anyone that I haven't, then please do let me know in the chat. Good morning to Colin, David, Les, Richard, Mervyn, and Andrea, amongst many others. And if Richard Dreyfus is watching or watching later on, Richard, we wish you a refuah shalema, a speedy and a full recovery. Okay, so we are studying Ethics of the Fathers. Just a reminder that today we have it, but tomorrow I don't think we are scheduled to have it. There will be the Megillah. The Megillah is at 9:30. So let's go through the next Mishnah. Next Mishnah. So we are weighing up the various sages. Now we come to Mishnah, I think it's 13. Amar lahem, he said to them, Su'u u'u, go out and see, Eizehi derech tova, what is a good way, Shi'it ba'adam, which a person should cleave and cling to. The first self-help book is right here. Ethics of the Fathers is really the self-help book, and it's probably sold more copies than all the self-help books put together. But listen to what's being said. What is a good way, a derech tova, right, for a person to conduct themselves in this world? How are we going to ensure? What is the mechanism or the rule of thumb or the technique for us to ensure that we live meaningful lives? So Rebbe Eliezer is the first one to come along and to share his wisdom. Rebbe Eliezer says, Ayin tova, a good eye. What's a good eye? Right? Rebbe Shua Omer, Chaver tov, a good friend. Rebbe Yossi Omer, Shochen tov, a good neighbor. Oh, not so easy, huh? I'm blessed on both sides. Rebbe Shimon Omer, Haroyes Noilad, somebody who sees what is about to the eventual outcome. Okay, we'll explain this in a minute. Rebbe Eliezer Omer, Leiv tov, a good heart. Right? Very often, that is one of the compliments that is stated at the time of somebody's passing. A leiv tov, he had a good heart. What does it mean, though? Amar lahem, ra'ani es divrei Elazar ben Aruch midivreichem. I think the Rebbe Elazar ben Aruch's words are more significant. I think that his statements trumps yours. Shebichlal devorav divreichem. Because why is it better than what you have said? Because his words incorporate all of your words. Now we need to understand and work this out. So let's go back to the beginning and see how much we can get through. It's an action-packed Mishnah, which we are doing on the fast of Esther. This is the only fast in which we fast because somebody fasted. Esther fasted, and she said, I'm going to fast. With the writings on the wall, there's been the final solution by Haman, signed and sealed by Achashverosh. Right, there is no going back. Once the royal decree has been passed, it cannot be nullified. I'm going to fast. I'm going to turn to God and hope and pray and have faith that He will be able to deliver us from this terrible decree. And as a result of her, she told the Jewish people to also fast. All the Jews of Shushan fasted because Esther was fasting, and we fast because they fasted. Anyone ever thought what the idea is before we are digressing? So the idea of Esther fasting was that there was, at long last, her and the Jewish people came to a realization, or that she led the Jewish people, that she knew long beforehand. But the Jewish people now came to a realization, that we are ultimately in the Almighty's hands. And despite the fact that they had tried to cozy up to Achashverosh and to the hoi toy in high society, through the banquet and other means, and they thought that they were safe, from one second to the next, they realized that they were not, and that because they were Jewish, they were being persecuted, and their very existence was being threatened. And therefore, they turned to God and recognized that in Him we have faith, and in Him we have erred. And therefore, our fasting replicates hers and theirs, and therefore we are affirming our faith at this time, stating clearly that we recognize, although we may be very busy with the world, our fate is in your hands. And never was that a more true and statement that resonates with each and every one of us in our own way than when it comes to this particular Purim, a Purim which is the anniversary really of COVID, and sadly many from neighboring communities lost their lives from the parties that occurred on Purim, and our thoughts, of course, are with their families at this difficult time. But also, it's a time when we recognize how reliant and dependent we are and should be. Okay, so Rebbe Eliezer says that you need to have a good eye. You know, when we were younger, and I'm looking at the crowd, and I'm sure everyone had a similar experience, right? There was what's called the Bendela, the red Bendela. Estelle, do you remember that? Harry, you know, a red Bendela. A red Bendela, when almost as soon as I was born, I think it was my mother or my grandmother or maybe my bubba, they insisted that I have a red Bendela, a red band put around my hands. And that was the idea, the tradition was that it would ward off the evil spirits. The truth is that we don't want an ayin hara, right? A bad eye, an evil eye. What is an evil eye? An evil eye is when all we see and put our eye on, our single eye, is the bad, the wickedness, we're critical, we find fault, right? Instead of looking at the positives, we accentuate the negatives. So therefore, the ayin tov is that we are always able, in any given situation, to see the good, right? If we think about the story of Bilam, who was the great adversary of Moshe, in that his prophecy was on par with Moshe, and a non-Jewish prophet who tried to curse, employed by Balak for an extortionate amount of money to curse the Jewish people. How did he do it? He said, take me to a place. I wanted to go to the cliff top and to overlook and see the Jewish people. How did Bilam see the Jewish people in order to try to curse them? It was by looking at the Jewish people with his ayin hara, his one eye. He only had one eye. He only saw a jaundiced eye that only sees the bad, only sees the negatives. And that's what he wanted to emphasize and to focus and to draw God's attention to our failings, our weaknesses that we all have. And the idea is that if we actually want to live in a world of pure kula tov, of only goodness, then it's incumbent upon each and every one of us to put an ayin tov, to focus on the good that we see in people and in any given situation. The difference between success and can'ts, as Rudyard Kipling says, right, is whether we see it's in the cans or the can'ts. That's the difference. Okay, are we going to be positive or negative? Let's go on. There's so much more to say about the ayin tov, but not now. Rabbi Shua Omer chaver tov. You have to have a good friend. Now, this is along similar lines, in fact, to Rebbe Eliezer. A bad friend, and the Torah and Jewish thought is really urges us to find a chaver tov. It doesn't say chaverim. It doesn't say 900,000 friends on Facebook. Please note all of those that are on Facebook. But what it does say is, it says, find yourself a chaver tov, a good friend that is able, first and foremost, like we saw in the previous statement, to emphasize and to accentuate the ayin tov, the goodness that are in yourself, but also they have the integrity to hold up that mirror and to say to you, you know what, on this occasion, I don't think you got it right. They're not the yes men or women that are just going to go along because they don't really care about you. People that genuinely care about you will first and foremost compliment you and show and accentuate your good points, but at the very same time, in a constructive fashion, they will point out any failings. That's why you need a chaver tov. A chaver tov is somebody who doesn't necessarily do anything for you. It's somebody who's there for you. It's easier to give things and to do things than it is to be present, emotionally present, to be able to be present when somebody's going through something and to be able to feel their pain. It's not sympathizing, it's empathizing. Think about the difference, okay? So let's go on. Rabbi Yossi says, a shochen tov. It's not easy. It's not easy always living next to your neighbors. And here it doesn't just mean a shachin tov as in your next door neighbor. It could be anyone who's in your vicinity, anybody who is in your neighborhood, because a good friend is influential, but a shachin tov is even more influential. Because a good friend could be on the other side of the world. They're not necessarily involved in your day-to-day activities. A neighbor is somebody who's involved in your lives. The dustbins, right? How we put the dustbins, the blocking of the driveways. I don't need to go on in Woodside Park with so many cul-de-sacs and so many cars. It's always inevitably a challenge and a tension, but it's not just about that. In days gone by, a shachin tov, a good neighbor, right? I remember, I think it was Edwin in one of his talks spoke about the neighbors that they had in Baghdad. And the whole idea of a neighbor is it's somebody who lives with you, right? That, in the old days, it wasn't that we had these brick walls and iron gates and, that kept us separate and insulated from our neighbors. God forbid we should see anybody. You go to some houses now, they've got, 10-foot high fences. And you live basically in your own bubble, not just in COVID, throughout the year. And that's not very healthy from a Jewish perspective. We need to be surrounded by people that are able to influence us, to give us constructive criticism. And therefore, more than a friend will, a neighbor will be able to, because they're in close proximity. The next one is Haroya, Reb Shimon Omer, Haroya es Hanoilad. You have to see what's coming. Ezel Chacham. We find in another place of Ethics of the Fathers, who is wise? Harayas Hanoilad. Somebody who's able to see into the future. Somebody who's able to see and behave and act beyond their nose. Okay? It could be with family, relationships, right? Don't live with this cognitive dissonance. Don't live in denial. It's not just a river. Okay? We're meant to be able to have an awareness, to think, to look ahead. Is that really the right thing, the right path for me, for my family, for my kids, for my friends, for my business partner? Are we really heading in the right direction? Right? And see what you can do about it. Okay? Look ahead, have fortitude. The next statement, which is the key to living a meaningful life, is, we said, Rebbe Elazar says, a leiv tov. What's a good heart? I apologize, we're in stoppage time. A leiv tov is a good heart. The commentaries say the heart symbolizes the emotion and the desire that are the root of every endeavor, aspiration, and spiritual tendency and achievement. And therefore, the leiv tov, the good heart, includes all the stimuli that lead people towards goodness, provided they obey the dictates of their instincts. Okay? Their noble instincts. So it's important for us to train our hearts, okay, so that our gut instinct, our emotion, our feeling are in keeping. They're going to keep us on the straight and narrow. There are some things that are not written. However many books we have, and surround ourselves with thousands of books. We're the people of the book. But there are some things where it's a matter of, it's something unwritten. It's in the what they call the fifth chelek of the Shulchan Aruch, the fifth book of the Jewish law, which doesn't exist. In other words, it's about having a common sense, and that comes from a gut reaction, a feeling. Sometimes you go to I don't know if you've had this, but you go to a great person. I've been to great sages. It's something, the question could be about life, about a decision, about the way to choose a path in life, and they just have this sixth sense. It's quite remarkable. So that's that one. And the final one is Amalehem, and where is it? So Rebbe Elazar says a leiv tov, and he says Ra'ani es divrei Elazar ben Aruch midivreichem. But I see the words of Rebbe Elazar more than all your words, because as we said, the heart is something that guides us, right? The heart is something that's going to ensure that we stick to the straight and narrow, not just according to the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. That's why in the Shema, what do we say? We're meant to serve God, right? We don't say with our minds, b'chol levavecha, with all your heart. So we are meant to harness our hearts, the seat of our emotions and our passions, which is essential. That's the way we serve God. You can't just be somebody robotic who goes through life doing a bunch of do's and don'ts. God wants us to have character, to have passion, to have excitement, but at the same time, that potency that we have, it's like having, driving a Maserati down Lullington Garth. It's such a power that we have under the hood that we have to learn how to control it, how to harness it and refine it, and ensure that our emotions are kept in check. And therefore, we have that leiv tov, that good heart, that it's able to direct and to guide us at every step and twist and turn in life. Lovely to be joined by everyone. And as many of you have said, a Purim Sameach, which starts tonight on Zoom at 6:30. So now we'll do the Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer. Adonai lemem zacha es nishma Leah bas Feivel ben Yomen Akiva ben Shlomo Rabbi Yaakov ben David Ari Tzipora Fegel bas Ruben Baruch Paul Kazimir Shalom ben Elili ben bas Feivel for Moshe Shana bas Yaakov Shmo Kela ben bas Fenach Yochia ben Moshe Eliezer Samaka bas ben Yomen Shlomo Yochia ben Yeshua Levi Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katner, as well as the Yortzites for today. Are as follows: Shabtai ben David Elman, Tova bas Moshe Goodson, Yehuda ben Arav Menachem Mendel Speedwell, Chaim Elei ben Eliel Rosenfeld, Tova bas Moshe Goodson, Shoshana bas Chaim Graber, Shalamis bas Michael Richmond, Moshe ben Pinchas Shaffer, Racha bas Basha bas Elio Avram Lightstone, Chaim ben Shmuel Sugarman, Shalach Julio Lamam, Began Eden Temanu Chasam Lachem Balarachamim. Yasti rein v'seisa kanapab l'olamim Yisrachas nishmas amadnai nachlasam v'yanuch v'shlam shkavam v'nomar amen. Lastly, Refuah Shlema prayer, and we'll have in mind in particular Richard Dreyfus, who's got an infection, not COVID related, but he's in hospital, and our thoughts and prayers are with Richard, so much a stalwart of our community. Misha Berach, Avosenu Avram Yisrael Yaakov, Moshe Aaron, David Shlomo, v'yivarach Rapes Acholim. Babu Shana Mispalim Babu Ram Biscos Agadosh Baruch Hu Yimale Racham Aleihem Lachem Alchosam Yishlach Lem Fushlim Shemaim Lacholvim Basof Shach Yisrael Refuah Nefesh Refuah Guf Hashabaz Makariv and Amar Amen. Wish long life to all those that have Yortzeit today, that are joining us, and wish everyone well. Look forward to seeing you all later on the Purim celebrations, and any questions that you have in relation to that. If you haven't managed to do online and you want, I am distributing. So if you do want to drop something around in a sealed envelope, then I would distribute it to Matanot Lev Yonim, to poor people on Purim. But there has been a link that is sent out that will be much easier for you and for me. Have a great day. Look after yourselves. Purim Sameach. We'll see you later.